What is up guys, Eric here from Real Film Reviews bringing you another movie review, and this time for the new Michael Bay film, 13 Hours. 13 Hours is the story of 6 military contractors who are sent to Benghazi, Libya to defend a base, and in the ensuing night when there is an attack that happens, they are sent there and they have to stay there and defend the base for 13 hours, ergo where the title comes from. And this is based on the true events that happened in 2012. Now when I saw this movie being advertised, I didn't really know what to think. When the trailer first began, I was very into it, and then I saw it was by Michael Bay, which made me worried because he can't ever really get dramatic films to work. But surprisingly, this is probably Michael Bay's best film since like The Rock, because it actually feels somewhat heavy at moments in the movie, and it's surprising because Michael Bay usually can't capture anything like that. It's just a lot of explosions, and Michael Bayisms has become a popular term to describe his films, but this movie actually did a pretty decent job in making you kind of sort of care about the characters. I will say John Krasinski was actually pretty good in this film throughout it. He played his role well, and he also got in extremely good shape for this movie. Compared to Jim from The Office, this John Krasinski is massive. It looks like he ate 2 Jims from The Office, but he was actually pretty good, and I enjoyed him throughout the film, and the action sequences were actually pretty well done. The ending action sequence, like the siege on the outpost itself, was by far the best done action sequence throughout the film. The beginning of the movie was a little slow. The first hour or so was actually really slow and really generic to like every action movie that's ever been made where there's soldiers that all meet each other, because you don't really get attached to anyone, and then you get the generic like he's got kids and a baby and blah blah blah, which was I could have done without really, but I understand that it is based on true events. I don't know how true to the characters it is in real life, but the events themselves are based on true story. So overall, I thought it was alright, but the beginning hour was definitely rough to get through, though the rest of the action throughout the film was filmed well. It was just a lot of shaky cam in the beginning, and I've never really seen Michael Bay try that, but I think he tried to take a book from Michael Mann, and when he did that, Michael Mann does shaky cam in his action sequences, just like Paul Greengrass does. It's a handheld shakiness, but it's not too shaky to where it like literally makes you get a headache, where the beginning of this movie, once it finally stopped, I was very thankful. I'll also say I think that the writers of this film and Michael Bay himself made a good decision leaving politics out of this film. I'm not gonna politically look at this film. I watched this movie for the movie, which is why when I'm giving a review of it, I don't put into it any political views that I have, and I think that they did a good job doing that, because if this is based on the real events, those soldiers would not have known what was going on. They wouldn't have known why these people were attacking them or what had happened, and that's what the film gives you. It gives you that feeling that these soldiers really don't know why this is happening, and they're just doing what they have to do to survive and protect the people inside of the outpost. The dialogue in this movie actually had a few pretty good lines too. There were some very, very cheesy and dumb lines thrown in there, but there were a few lines where I was like, that's actually a pretty good line for that scene, or whatever, and I was surprised because I expected really bad dialogue throughout this whole film, and I was happy to see that maybe Michael Bay can do a little bit of sprinkling in of bad lines, because no matter what, it's still a Michael Bay movie, which sounds bad, but it is. But it did actually have some decent dialogue and some decent, like, sequences between the soldiers when they would be having conversations, and I enjoyed that. Now, as I said, the first hour of this film went very slowly and was very generic, which was disappointing. The main thing, though, that I'll say that's kind of a small thing that was wrong with it, but actually kind of bothered me throughout the whole, like, final act of the film with the big battle sequence, was throughout this whole movie, every character that you meet that's a soldier is like this massive, burly, muscular man with a huge beard, which is cool, and I get that, but the problem is it's hard to differentiate between the characters when you're doing quick cuts throughout an action sequence. There was one particular sequence where something happened and I was completely lost as to who was involved and who was where in the scene, because even though in the last action sequence they do a decent job of explaining to you the tactical setup they're in because they show you a blueprint and everything, you still kind of are confused because then people end up on different places where they aren't supposed to be. And another thing that was really wrong with this movie was they had these little time blips that would show up like right down here in the corner, and it'd be like 12:10 p.m. or like whatever, and then it would be like 12:15 a.m. And they were fine because I understood that it was supposed to like show you the amount of time they spent in this situation. But the problem was, you'd be watching a scene and they'd be like, we gotta go do this. And then they would leave to go do that thing, and then it'd be like a 2-second scene with someone else, and then it'd cut back and it would be, now it's 12:15 when it was 12:01 when we initially started this, and they're just now doing the thing that they talked about doing 15 minutes ago in movie time. And it kind of just bothered me. It was such a small thing, but it was just like, why would you have them be doing these things and then put us, like, show us like, oh, it's this time now? Well, why did it take them 15 minutes to do that super small, minuscule act? And I didn't understand the point of doing it. Like, why not just show, like, the beginning and a little bit throughout? But then once you get to the sequences, no one cares about what time it is. Like, if there's downtime and they're just in the middle of a conversation, sure, show the time. But don't do it right before you cut to a different scene. And then, like I said, in the beginning of the film, there were some very shaky, quick-cut action sequences that did not look good. Though I will say the siege battle at the end was really cool. And I think Michael Bay actually did a pretty decent job with this movie. I'm gonna give 13 Hours a B-. I think this is one of the best Michael Bay films we've gotten in recent memory. Not to say it's a great film, but I actually think it's a pretty decent movie, and throughout it there, it has its issues, but it's not terrible like some of his recent films have been, so I have to give him props there, and I honestly think he did do a pretty good job of paying tribute to these men that put their lives at stake to defend the people inside of this outpost. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of 13 Hours, share everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and I hope to see you guys later.